Disclaimer: the following will contain heavy spoilers, or potential spoilers, for the game 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. If you have not played the game before, I highly encourage you to either go grab a copy and play it yourself, or watch someone else's playthrough of it, preferably mine. But I'm not forcing you. You can watch anyone else's playthrough of it. Anyway, the game is styled like a mystery novel, so part of the fun is actually trying to piece together everything that's happening for yourself. Now, if you're still here, then welcome to the segment I'd like to call 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim Files, where I take snippets of the game and explain them and attempt to expand upon them because the universe of 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is very well crafted. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started, shall we? In this first episode, we will be discussing the Interstellar Development Project, the three phases that make up the project as a whole, as well as the people behind it, the reasons for its existence, and maybe a few theories of my own personal making at the very end of the video. A brief history lesson, I suppose I should put it. In 2188, human life had but all gone extinct. The only remaining people were 15 in total, and they all resided in this colony that is currently being shown on screen. The first phase of the Interstellar Development Project included the construction of all necessary equipment and machinery to sustain the development of other planets, which led to the second phase, terraforming, the most important of which are the self-replicating probes. Now, I would explain them. However, there is a log that explains it better than I could. Also, I'm fairly sure you would prefer two beautiful women talking about science than me, so enjoy the log.
Professor Takamiya, how are the projections on those self-replicating probes? The simulations look good, especially the survey range. We never expected a rate of expansion that high. It was definitely the right call to prioritize its strength as a group over individual units. These probes are pretty much living machines now. They self-replicate using natural resources mined from asteroids in their routing. They'll just keep building up and breaking down. An infinite cycle of self-replication on its way to its target. There's basically zero chance of the tech failing midway through. They'll just keep on going. Probably long after humanity's gone. Glad I came to an expert then. All that's left is the refinement of the memory cube. The infrastructural storage cell, right? The cube's made up of 5 identical memory layers. In theory, it'll compare itself to nearby probes and use them as a template for repairs. And if it can't be repaired, well, fine. One probe down. We've got thousands more. And our passengers? I'll be loading them up with the DNA of all the survivors. I've already got samples and data from all 15. Now it's just down to launching them. These clones will go with all our hopes on their shoulders.
The self-replicating probes contain vast amounts of data. Included were schematics for facilities that would be built before and after terraforming a planet, as well as housing the genetic data of millions of people, including the 15 survivors of the extinction event of 2188. A clarification for anyone who might be confused at that. Only the 15 survivors' DNA were taken directly from the people themselves. The rest of the genetic data was just that, data that was based approximately on medical records, or essentially digital DNA data. The second phase of the Interstellar Development Project begins as soon as a self-replicating probe locates an appropriate target planet, aka one that can be terraformed to become habitable for life. Once that has happened, the self-replicating probe will then construct a orbital satellite that will then preside over all aspects of the terraforming process, including after the terraforming process, namely the construction of important facilities such as the facility that houses the growth pods. Now we reach the third and final phase of the Interstellar Development Project. Inside these facilities, and more specifically inside of the growth pods, The DNA of the 15 survivors of 2188 will then be used to create clones. These clones inside the growth pods are then put into a simulated reality. Yes, exactly like the Matrix, where they will get to experience daily life. However, everything they feel is very real. The interlocutors 80% of their data contain literally data that pertain to senses of touch, smell, sight, hearing. It is a perfect emulation of the real world essentially, where everything is taken into account, including the feeling of wearing clothes or accessories. It is a highly advanced system. However, the reason for this is because of Tamao Kurabe. As stated here, since humanity lacked the technology to sustain life across multiple light years travel at the time, her plan for Project Ark was to transport the genetic information over to the new world where cloning and species restoration efforts would occur. However, she also believed that humanity is defined by the inheritance and evolution of our culture and knowledge. That is why she created the growth pods for the final phase, whose sole goal was to ensure that the 15 clones would be able to experience life so that they may gain maturity over the course of the program. The simulated reality was meant to also teach them about the world and about their history as humans. This was accomplished inside the simulation via the creation of 5 sectors, each of which represented a different historical era. In terms of year, the sectors go by descending order, with Sector 1 being 2089 to 2109. Sector 2 is 2049 to 2069. Sector 3 is 2009 to 2029. Sector 4 is 1969 to 1989. And finally, Sector 5 is 1929 to 1949. Had the plan gone intended as by Tamao Kurabe, the interlocutors would have downloaded all of their experiences from the simulation directly to their nanomachines and then disconnected itself from their cloned bodies, allowing them to finally take control of their own bodies. However, everything went awry when one of the last survivors was so driven by her own despair, she decided to sabotage the project, hoping to finally put an end to all human life. And with that, we are now finally done with the 3 phases of the Interstellar Development Project, and Project Arc as well. So now we will be moving on to a discussion, or should I say, a brief overview, actually, of the 15 participants of the project, whether they wanted to or not, because the extinction of all human life doesn't exactly leave you much of a choice now, does it? First up is Chihiro Morimura, the project leader of the Interstellar Development Project. She is also a top researcher when it comes to nanotechnologies and was an executive of Newman Incorporated, a major company when it came to nanotechnology before its acquisition by Shikishima at the behest of Renya Goto. Goto tried to stop the project before 2188, and you can imagine that Chihiro Morimura wasn't exactly very happy, nor has a very cordial relationship with him after all that happened between them. She feels an immense sense of guilt because the nanomachines that wiped out 2188's human population, essentially the extinction event, was all caused by her, not just her technology, but indirectly by her actions. There were also other powers and other people at play that caused it, but she is mostly at fault. It is only fitting then that the next person will be Renya Goto, the CEO of Shikishima. His actions led to Morimura destroying all of human life on Earth in 2188. If you're curious as to what and why would this eventually lead to the extinction event, There is a log that will help to clarify some things. However, it also still leads the question as to how exactly the nanomachines killed old life on Earth. I will I will shut up for a moment as the log plays. So enjoy the log.
This data is that you, Goto? It's been a while. The last time I saw you was 2 months before my death. Roughly a year ago, I think. Chairman Ogata? An AI construct based on Chairman Kengo Ogata. Why would this be in Morimura's files? I see. So this is how she managed to raise all those funds. She must have used this AI to access the Shikishima Chairman's hidden network. Not quite. I'm afraid that was originally my idea. The good Professor Morimura was only following my orders. So all of this was by design? Your design? Leaking the prototype nanomachinery to the black market? The catastrophic consequences? You're the one who exploited her. If you blame anyone, blame yourself. We were so close to losing Project Ark entirely. Now we must prioritize the project above all else. I'll finally have my second chance at life. You were planning on downloading yourself into a clone. A brave new Earth is waiting for me. I won't let you do this. What is Professor Morimura doing now? She's dead. By that hitman's hands, I presume. That's humanity. Self-destructive to the very end. Only a few survivors left now. I give them 3 days at most. My deepest condolences for your imminent death. Shut up, Construct. Your project is over. Unfortunately for you, the Ark is already set off. It's still within comms range. You don't have clearance. I refuse to let an AI control the future of humanity. Out of the survivors, the ones who would have clearance.
To expand a bit on the log, Kengo Ogata was a major supporter in the Interstellar development project because, as he stated, he wanted his chance at the second life. More specifically, he was part of Project Art's conception. As you heard, he was the actual cause of the nanomachine infection that wiped out humanity. Renya Goto indirectly caused all this because of his own greed. And as you can see on screen, he acquired Newman Int because he simply wanted to use it as a front to hide a backdoor transfer of a large slush fund. He then suspended the project to attempt to cover up the proof. However, when Morimura's project was taken in for re-evaluation by a different company, he was afraid that the investigation would reveal his wrongdoings, to say the least. So he hired an assassin to kill her. That assassin being Ei Sekigahara. He investigated both Goto and Chihiro, and surprisingly, he did not accept the job simply because of financial gain. He decided to kill Morimura after the infection on Earth that wiped out humanity because, as he put it himself, he wanted to see Morimura's despair as she gazed in death's face. Because he was willing to sacrifice his own life to take her down. Even Sekigahara actually held some contempt for Morimura, as his exact words to her were, "the traitor of humanity." Morimura's death at the hands of Ei Sekigahara led to Major Juro Izumi having to fulfill her last wish for her. Chihiro Morimura actually started to grow very afraid that the 15 new generation of humans would not be able to, well, get along with each other, and eventually became fearful that they would kill each other. And that is why she decided she wanted to alter the final phase. The final phase alteration was to be her data downloaded directly into her host body. What she was planning was to change the artificial satellite's programming so that it would immediately insert her data into the clone that would eventually become Chihiro Morimura. Because of her death, Major Izumi decided to do it for her, mostly out of sympathy, and perhaps even because of love, because Juro Izumi and Chihiro Morimura were in quite an intimate relationship. The next one is this 8-year-old child. Her name is Megumi Yakushiji. This following log will explain to all what transpired. Enjoy the log.
Open the airlock. Hijiyama, respond please. I need you to open it. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Yakushiji.
Hijiyama, open the B2 airlock.
I'm afraid I can't do that. You're well aware of the reason.
We're not infected.
The vitals detected by your suit tell me otherwise. I'm so sorry, Yakushiji.
Fine, I may be infected, but my daughter isn't. Please check her.
It's true. She's not showing any signs of infection just yet.
So you'll let her in, right? Please.
Unfortunately, she is likely still in the incubation period.
Just save my daughter, I'm begging you.
It's not a risk we can afford to take.
You and I, we're comrades, aren't we? We've been to hell and back together. If it's the last thing I ask of you, please, Hijiyama.
I'm sorry, Yakushiji. You must understand. Hijiyama, halfway through to airlock control.
Major Izumi.
Izumi-san, I had a feeling you would say that. So I've sealed the airlock on my end. I can't allow you to infect this colony. Don't jump to conclusions. I'm the one getting out. I'll grab a shuttle and retrieve his daughter. We'll give it 24 hours. If she does turn out to be infected, then we'll never return. Simple as that. I can't accept this. It's an order, Hijiyama. Sorry, Yakushiji. You're going to have to leave your daughter with me. In the meantime, you'll need to return to the pod you came here in. Are you alright with that?
I entrust you with her life. My daughter. My Megumi.
I'll protect her at all costs. I promise. No matter what happens.
Takatoshi Hijiyama. He was in a relationship with Tsukasa Okino. He murdered Izumi to avenge Okino's death during a shootout in Sector 4. Here is a log to show the events that had transpired, also of the relationship between him and Okino. Enjoy the log.
What were you thinking, Okino?
What's wrong, Takatoshi?
What's wrong is this core system.
Oh, figured it out, huh?
Okino? Professor Shinonome found it. Daimos? Really? Everyone knows that's one of the old kaiju survival sims. Even I played that thing all the time when I was a kid.
Don't worry about it.
You're putting the fate of humankind's last colony in a video game?
I'm just reusing the infrastructure. Environment management code. Relax. We're not gonna get kaiju popping up.
Still.
And hey, faster than building the code base from scratch, right? Come on. You love me, so you can trust me, right? The work's done. We've done all we can for the human race's future. As long as this colony's life support holds out, as long as I've got even a second more, I'd rather spend it with you.
Tsukasa, you're right. I'd rather be holding you right now myself. I'll see if I can explain it to Professor Shinonome.
Thanks. I love you, Takatoshi.
What is this? That wasn't... But Okino and I were together. In love. It's impossible. Hey, put it up again. Here begins my final log. This isn't the same recording. Tsukasa's dead. The medical bio kits are no good to me now, so I only got an hour or two left. Why did it come to this? It was all logistical debate over Project Ark. An energy dispute. And Tsukasa, he argued to cancel the plan. To divert the energy to life support. If that damn Ogata and his cronies hadn't come armed... No. Too late to point fingers now. Izumi-san shot Tsukasa, so I made him pay. Him and his allies. As for the survivors, there's Professor Shinonome and Ida. They made it out safe. And me. Though, I figure I don't have long left. The hangar's blown out. And the colony's in ruins. It won't even take 20 hours. All we've worked for will be gone. I came here so I could protect people. And now I'll die here. With my friend's blood on my hands. If Project Ark actually goes through. If I actually get to be reborn somehow. I hope I live to protect them. Protect all my friends. My friends. I'm Tsukasa. Reborn.
Also, yes, Tsukasa Okino is indeed a guy. As the previous log already expanded upon his relationship with Takatoshi, instead I'll expand on his role. He was the programmer in charge of universal control. He essentially created the environment and everything that was a part of the simulation, which was used for the final phase of the project. Also, he does not know about his mother being Chihiro Morimura. He's what you would call a test tube baby. Morimura feels a huge maternal love for him, regardless, after finding out. However, they never told him, so Tsukasa actually has no idea. Also, I believe it should be clarified. It's not his fault that the simulation went awry. It was actually Shinonome. Ryogo Shinonome took advantage of the fact that Tsukasa used part of a video game code and then turned the simulation partially into a video game where you get attacked by enemies. Eh. Next up is Nenji Ogata. As there isn't actually much known about him outside of the what is being shown on screen, instead of expand upon what led to the energy dispute over Project Arc, Eiseki Gaharu's assassination attempt at Morimura is the cause. He blew up the generator of Sector 4. Yeah. When I said he was willing to sacrifice his life, I wasn't joking. He blew up the generator, which made Morimura panic because of the fact that it also endangered everyone else is the problem. And this led to the outcome that is the log from Hijiyama. Also, Hijiyama made it quite clear that he resents Ogata because they were the ones who came armed first. So, the most likely thing that happened is that they aimed their guns immediately at Juro and his side. So, they pretty much decided to fight back instantaneously. Like, I'm pretty sure no one would react well to having a gun pointed at you with the intent to kill. The next one is Natsuno Minami. She is the daughter of Yuki Takamiya, as well as Keitaro's girlfriend. Her role in the project is actually kind of hard to say, as the game doesn't give much indication outside of being a liaison that talked with the important people. Pretty much, she was the one who handled the more social aspects of the project, like talking to investors, talking to important people, talking to government agencies. At least, that's what I understand from everything that she does in her logs. Alright, next we'll talk about Natsuno's mother, Yuki Takamiya. The reason why they have different surnames? Because she divorced her husband. Also, Yuki Takamiya was an important part of ensuring the success of the first and second phase, as well as Tomi Kisaragi, but I'll talk about her a bit later. Yuki's research on the self-replicating probes are the ones that gave Morimura confidence that the Interstellar development project would work. Onward to Keitaro Miura. He is an engineer as well as the architect of the sectors. The sectors were covered earlier in the video, so here's a refresher. The sectors are all structures inside the simulation that represent a different era of time. To clarify, Miura designed what the sectors would look like. However, it was Okino's program that made them come to life, just so there is no confusion between the two's roles in the project. Tamao Kurabe's role in the project was varied. She provided and essentially ironed out the final parts of the final phase of the Interstellar development project, namely Project Art. She's also the one who is the mentor of Chihiro Morimura and an AI specialist. She and Okino worked together to pretty much create a simulation. In Okino's case, his was environments. In Tamao's case, it was the artificial intelligence of the only way to put it, the NPCs inside the simulation. Next up is Tomi Kisaragi. She was a terraforming researcher who designed the second phase of the Interstellar development project. Kisaragi's report on February 8, 2188 was about the simulation for the 25th terraforming attempt. It revealed that it took almost 2 millennia for a Type 57b planet to reach a habitable state for humanity. And interesting to note, her report came 4 months before the start of the infection that would eventually wipe out humanity. Unfortunately, we don't get to know much about the 2188 Tetsuya Ida, so we'll have to base it off of an existing clone of his, namely Ida Tetsuya of the second loop. They seem to have the closest resemblance to each other in terms of personality. They both viewed people as nothing more than tools to be used and disposed of, like in the case of Ryoko Shinonome. Ida Tetsuya also seems to be quite the cynic. His manipulation of Ryoko Shinonomi's love for him was eventually found out, and that led to Ryoko going, I suppose we can call it insane, as she still knew what she was doing. But so drowned in her grief and despair, she decided to alter the final phase in an attempt to sabotage it and, well, end humanity as a whole. And our final participant, Ryoko Shinonome. Now, I would expand more about what she did after Ida betrayed her. However, it just so happens there's actually a log for that, so enjoy the log!
Is this me from the future?
His love was nothing but empty words. Mr. Ida, he was using me right from the very start. I was such a fool. We are all that remains of humanity, and still we deceive each other. So filled with hate, I have had enough.
This can't be real.
Humanity has always been fated for ruin. Project Ark was a mistake, but it is already in its second stage. I cannot stop it. All I can do is derail it. I have linked in parts of the terraforming project. The heavy machinery will then purge humans from all sectors. If everything goes according to plan, the final phase will be reset, and all sectors will fall into a never-ending loop. What remains will be a peaceful world, finally free of humanity.
No, I couldn't have.
This place will be destroyed as well. The human race has reached its end. We have no need for a future.
Now, to offer some clarification, when Shinonome said, "We are the last vestiges of humanity," she wasn't joking. Literally at that point, she and Ida were the last sole survivors of humanity left on the colony. And recall, in the log between Hijiyama and Tsukasa, Shinonome was the one who discovered that Okino had used a video game code for the simulation. What she essentially did then was to use the video game code to make it so that the simulation would treat it as if it was normal for the people inside. namely the 15 people inside, as well as the NPCs, getting attacked by the kaiju. The kaiju's designs were all based on the terraforming robots schematics that were stored inside the artificial satellites. Considering how much of a yandere Shinonome is inside the simulation, it actually is quite believable that her 2188 self would go so crazy, or, well, I suppose, be so disappointed in her love being spurned that she decided to just kill everyone with her. If you're still with me up to this point in the video, thank you very much for watching it for so long and bearing with my voice. I know I don't exactly have the most, well, calming, comfortable voice to listen to, I suppose would be the only accurate term to put it. But anyway, thank you very much. Also, don't worry, there is only a little bit more left. Now I will be discussing a few fun little tidbits of information in the mystery notes of the game. The facilities were built to last 5,000 years. This was part of the final phase project planning done by Tomi Kisaragi. That's what they meant by updating the probes to monitor the final phase to see if it had to be redone. Because whenever, well, we actually don't have any idea what the criteria behind what a failure or the success of the simulation actually is. Before the sabotage by Ryoko Shinanomi, I mean. However, whenever it was deemed a failure, the cycle, the loop, the simulation would then repeat itself. It would restart everything from scratch, and that's why the facilities were built to last 5,000 years. We've only got to see the aftermath of 3 loops before they finally got out. However, as stated by the file here, it's actually been over 300 loops. Not to mention what we can infer from A. Sekigahara and Ida Tetsuya's conversation in the third loop. The facility had hit its operational limit, meaning that at least 4,900 something odd years had passed easily. They've already looped so much that the facility was already nearing its end. Because as you recall, the facility can only last for 5,000 years before the artificial satellite will have it completely dismantled and then rebuilt to make a new one to, well, ensure the success of Project Arc. But then the problem is, as long as they don't finish the loop, or should I say win the simulation, they would never be allowed out. And that is the thing that Shinonome was talking about. Trapping the 15 final hope of humans inside an eternal loop. Or, as Juro Izumi from the first loop put it the most accurately, this eternal cage. Another interesting to note is that the amount of time it's been after the extinction of 2188 in the 22nd century. Why did I just say 28? Anyway, the 22nd century, it's been 20 million years. Yes, the new planet they are on, that they eventually inhabited, is 20 million years travel away from planet Earth. And another more interesting thing is that there are actually other planets that are even further away from Earth that have already been cultivated, or should I say terraformed, and are also going through their own loops. This essentially means that in the 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim universe, there are many planets that have different forms of humans now, and the only difference is what they decide to do with the, well, with the knowledge they have from their predecessors, namely their old selves from the 22nd century. We can see so much potential and possibilities. And as they always say with space, the sky's the limit, but in space there's no end, so the limit is limitless. Now, this final segment will contain, as stated above, theories and ramblings of a madman, namely myself. If you don't really care for any theory discussions or anything like that, then you're free. You're free to click off right now, not to flee. Do not run away. You're free to click off right now. If you are, however, interested in listening to me ramble on, well, thank you very much again. So, the first thing to take note of is the Interstellar development project was actually already under works long before 2188. I've stated that before, but we never did get an inclination as to when it started. All we know is the project had started long before humanity was even getting wiped out by the nanomachines. And we also know that Goto was the reason why the project was almost cancelled, which drove Nendo Ogata's AI insane and desperately wanted to make sure Project Art became a priority. So, my theory is that Nendo Ogata used the nanomachines that were sold on the black market to share, namely, his own personality by over by having some sort of backdoor program which would secretly overwrite the nanomachines to use his personality. And then with his new personality, he would try to, or should I say, he would successfully wipe out humanity because he wanted to force all resources back to focus on Project Arc so that he could get his second chance at life. This actually leads me to believe that initially the Interstellar Development Project was created with the basis of space exploration more so than terraforming other planets. And it's very likely that due to the fact that she needed financial backers, eventually she had to add on things that would seem profitable to gain their interest so that they would invest into her project. Namely, the terraforming part. Because with the creation of a new planet with new resources, it would be very, very enticing for any potential financial investor. And Project Art is very likely something that was tagged on after researching the feasibility of humanity, or should I say, of human individuals being able to survive the trip. And as Tomi Kisaragi stated, it's not very possible, as the terraforming process itself would take millennia. And Natsuno herself said that the most nearest planet to us that resembled Earth in any way or even had any of the elements that could make it a second Earth was at least 1,200 light years away, which is still pretty far. If I am to be honest, the biggest mystery that 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim leaves unanswered is Renya Goto of 2188's reason or motivations. Why did he need the Interstellar Development Project to act as a front for his transfer of large funds? We're given snippets and little clues, but nothing concrete, such as Chihiro Morimura from 2188 stating that Renya Goto was always a slave to his own desires. So, that means that he did his actions definitely out of some sort of selfish desire. But then, the question remains, what was the purpose of the money he transferred? Like, an optimistic take on the topic would be maybe he was desperately in need of the cash to save the life of his granddaughter or something. But then, that's the optimistic take. The more realistic take is that he was just corrupt in transferring the money to himself on an offshore account. Yuki Takemiya's statement about the self-replicating probes is also a very interesting comparison. She talks about how if one probe dies, then fine, there are thousands more because they keep replicating each other and creating more. So, the same goes for the planets. If one planet fails, there are a lot more other planets that will be terraformed and have their own growth pods and their own versions of the 15 growing. This is a really nice little, I'm not sure what to call it. I guess leftover, leftover for people to ponder on the fact that in 13 Sentinels, it means that there is a countless, innumerous amount of worlds where it is inhabited by humans who have never met each other. And by all account, that means that they are all alien neighbors or extraterrestrial neighbors, since they all reside in different planets in different parts of space. And with that, this seems like a great way to end this video. Thank you for watching, and I don't know, like, comment? You can subscribe if you want. I'd greatly appreciate it. But I would prefer likes and comments way more, because I would really like to know if I'm doing anything wrong, or if I'm lucky doing anything right. Also because I want to improve, especially when it comes to my voice. I'm still not sure if I'm talking too boring. I mean, the reason why it was supposed to be monotonous at first was because this is supposed to be informative of the lore of 13 Sentinels. Anyway, I don't want to bore any of you with my consistent rambling and yabbling? Yabbling? What am I even saying? My yodeling? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye, and hopefully see you in my other videos.